Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining me for Creating in Color. My name is Nicole Young Martin, and I'm producer and host of this series. Thank you all so much for your patience. We were originally scheduled to start at 5 p.m. Eastern Time today. We got some technical glitches out of the way, and we are now ready to start our conversation. So many of you may recognize me from the award-winning podcast Black Writers Read, which just finished its fifth season. Highlighting the work of BIPOC creatives and innovators, Creating in Color offers an inside look into the practice and process of writers, musicians, visual artists, curators, and community leaders whose work challenges conventions, redefines culture, and promotes social transformation. Essentially, it's an excuse for me to bring some of my friends and other cool people who are doing amazing work focused on community building, equity, and inclusion in creative practice. Creating in Color will serve as Black Writers Read off-season show while I'm preparing for season 6. I am coming to you from my home in New England with this series from mid-June through mid-August while Black Writers Read is on hiatus. If you've missed conversations on Black Writers Read, check us out at blackwritersread.com. We're also available on Instagram at Black Writers Read. Today is an opportunity for us to meet Dee Colin, the solo performer in WAM Theater's production of Where We Stand, playing in Lenox, Mass. On June 26th, 27th, and 29th, and Albany, New York on June 28th. We'll learn about her and her work along with getting an inside scoop into this intimate solo community exploration. Written by Donnetta Lavinia Graves and directed by Vernice Miller, Where We Stand is an imaginative and soulful storyteller spins a tale of a lonely soul tempted by the devil's kindness on a fateful trip to the crossroads. A Kilroy's list pick and a winner of the Whiting Award for Drama, Where We Stand is an epic fable of penance filled with humor, heart, and music that explores an individual pushed to the edge. Outcast by society, the exile is left in the hands of the audience, who ultimately must decide their fate as they wrestle between mercy and justice. A community solo exploration. I hope that you come to the conversation today and also when you purchase your tickets and see the show with an open heart. The New York Times bills Where We Stand as a Pied Piper story, which doubles as a boldfaced allegory about class and community, which Where We Stand is rich in language. Now, let's learn about today's guest. Dee Colin is a multidisciplinary artist of Haitian descent whose work spans poetry, visual art, and theater. She is the author of Dreaming in Creole and the playwright behind Simone, a one-woman show, and Psalm 91, Releasing Religion. A teaching artist and curator, she creates spaces for storytelling and healing, with work showcased nationally and internationally in publications, performances, and exhibitions. Her mantra is be inspired, then inspire. Based in the Berkshires of Western Massachusetts, WAM Theatre celebrates its 16th year presenting and producing new plays and reimagined approaches to contemporary theater. With a focus on uplifting and championing social issues facing women and girls, WAM Theatre seeks to activate communities towards participating in change. As our current co-president of the board of directors, I am elated and proud to say that our work has impact locally, regionally, and across the country. Visit us online at whamtheater.com to learn more about our work and to purchase tickets for Where We Stand. Creating in Color follows a similar format to our Black Writers Read, except we'll dive straight into conversation upon me welcoming my guests to the virtual stage. If you have a question or comment that you would like to have shared live on air, please feel free to drop it in the comment section of the platform we are joining us from today. I will either compile the questions and pose them to the guests during the conversation, or I'll hold them towards the end. Also, throughout our conversation, I will be sharing links to learn more about WAM Theatre and also to purchase tickets to this weekend's performance. So I'd now like to welcome Dee Colin to the virtual stage. Good evening.
Good evening.
So
Thank you
great.
for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yay. And I'm so glad to meet you. We have so many great things to talk about. So folks who are joining us, I have questions for Dee Colin, both about the rehearsal process of Where We Stand, what to expect, and then also her own work as she is a solo performer, poet, visual artist, curator, educator, all the things. So the first question that I have for you is, what drew you to Where We Stand into this role?
Well, it's written in poetry, and as a poet, and someone who does theater, someone who sings, I was really drawn by the melding of genres. I really like when different creative forms interact with each other and seeing what happens when we create without thinking about the limitations or boundaries of a certain particular genre or of art, of art making.
Nice. The next question that I have for you is, as a poet and performer yourself, what
Hmm.
tools that currently exist in your toolkit are you bringing to create the characters of man and where we stand?
Well, I've done performing as a poet, single poems featuring at different venues as a poet. Also done a play where I wrote the play in free verse poems. The challenge of this play is that it's not one character; it's more than one character, and so my play with poetry has to kind of feed into my play with storytelling and how I observe the world as an artist and write poems based on what I see and experience in the world. And so I'm bringing in character voices that I'm familiar with, but also that can help to engage the community gathering to be a part of the show. Um, and seeing where that goes. A lot of it is play, and yeah, a lot of it is play.
Yes. And speaking of play, in terms of the morality issues of sorts, I would
Mhm.
love for you to talk about some of the challenges that man faces, the play that you have and are able to have with the characters, and then how does man feel depending on the audience to choose his fate?
Mm. Um, well, for one, man experiences a kind of loneliness that I think there's a lot of us who can relate to being lonely, but he exists on like the outside of community so much that it puts him in this situation that um it looks whatever's shiny, this shiny new offer looks like the answer, and when you're feeling like when you're in a state of like deep loneliness, then things that might not be the best things for you start to look really good, and so I understand that yearning that the man has. And then, when we think about community, sometimes it might be like we think that community doesn't care, but then each community is made up of a lot of people who are also going through their own thing or feeling lack in some way, or others who are feeling disempowered. And I think throughout the course of the play, man starts to understand that. Um, and so the playing with characters is really the journey of my emotions or trying to touch on emotions with man, go from being bitter to being excited to being like kind of what happened. It's just there's a lot of different feelings that he experiences in the community and outside of it.
Nice. And speaking of the characters,
Mhm.
which of the characters that you embody have you grown to love? Which have you grown to judge? And which do
Mm.
you see continuing to grow as you continue the rehearsal process?
I have come to love Doc Humphrey.
Oh,
Yeah. I really like Doc Humphrey, and it's only because of how his voice sounds when I'm Doc Humphrey,
Yes.
so like, so I he's my favorite voice to do. So
Nice.
yeah, he's my favorite voice to do. I don't know that there are like any characters I'm really judging. It's
Hmm.
so hard to judge any characters in this play because I find myself even when I'm I'm not really like I'm kind of side eyeing a line like did you really just say that, But even then I'm like, well, they got reasons too, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's hard for me to not meet all the characters with some level of empathy.
Mm. And I know like empathy is like from what I'm seeing, because I'm also a performer myself, is
Mm.
sometimes the way to lead with love, curiosity, and like empathy first. So I
Yeah.
can easily see why you don't necessarily have a character that you would judge yet, which I am just so curious. This is like an interesting aside. This is a question. So for folks who
Mhm.
are joining us, I typically send and like talk with our guests the questions prior. So this is a question that is kind of off the cuff. I'm curious, have you, Vernice, the director, excuse me, and other like people in the production team, have y'all tried yet any rehearsals where you had some of them in playing the audience? And if so, like what interactions have you had so far, and like what are some of the outcomes that have come up?
Yes, WAM staff has been in the um community or audience, so to speak. Um and I've had folks sitting in different seats um to play around with what that feels like when I arrive at certain lines or a certain place in the play. um and because not everyone is there every day, there's different reactions as the voices are developed and oh, it didn't sound like that last time, or I've developed a really deep voice for the stranger, and um uh that character has kind of like um gotten some movement, and the switch between the man's voice and the stranger. um I've seen some faces light up a little bit for
Yes.
that. um and so it's exciting to see. And I'm excited to see with a larger group what how people respond to what's being said. And I'm excited to just have fun with the voices because I'm not sure if how people are expecting what people are expecting. So yeah. Yeah.
So this is an adaptation of the next question.
Mm.
And so for folks, we have, both and this is a very, very, I think, unique situation, a beautiful situation in theater. We have a Black woman director and a Black
Mhm.
woman performer. So can you
Mhm.
talk about how you bring yourselves to the rehearsal process and how that's informed the ways in which you go about creating these characters?
Um, well, for one, you're right. That is something that doesn't often happen, or often happen often enough, maybe,
Mhm.
more accurately. And I think that this pairing couldn't have been more perfect.
Nice.
Um, Vernice Miller, the first day I said, "Oh, you feel like home." So
Wow.
it was very easy to fall into conversation, and to feel like we kind of knew each other before.
Nice.
We're also staying in the same place during the duration of rehearsals, and so
Nice.
we get to experience each other outside of rehearsal as well, and I think that helps to build connection. And sometimes, an idea will pop up too, and we can think about that in the next rehearsal. So
Mhm.
that's been really helpful.
Nice.
Um, and as far as, bringing in who we are, our identities, Vernice is from Jamaica, and my family's from Haiti, and so
Oh,
we've had some talks about the Caribbean, and there's conversation is easy. Conversation is easy, um, and on Juneteenth. Just to give you an idea of how we come into the space, we enter the space. We started the day with acknowledging Juneteenth, watching something about Juneteenth, and then setting into rehearsal. And there are parts of the play that I think really inform that. There's a song, "Do You Want to Be Free?" And
mm,
I sang a little bit of that at lunch on Juneteenth, and
nice.
I think it's easy for me to think about um, how I'm moving in this world, and looking at the play, and being in rehearsal and outside of rehearsal. It's kind of a fluid kind of being.
Mm,
Yeah.
nice.
Mhm.
And this segues so nicely into the next question. So, and this question is going to be even more interesting. So I'll give my background first. So I've worked in theater for a long time, and right after I got my bachelor's degree in theater, I'm originally from Detroit, and right after I got my
Oh,
bachelor's degree, yeah, and I went to the University of Michigan, and right after I got my bachelor's degree in theater, I had an internship at Capitol Repertory Theater, which is going to
okay.
be the
Mhm.
company the theater venue for the Albany, New York performance. And so I am very, very familiar with the Capital Region. But I lived in Albany in like the early to mid 2000s, so it was a bit ago. But I'm still very familiar with the Capital Region because also I've done some work. I've done some performances at RPI through their doctoral program in electrical art and electronic arts and all those things. So I think this is going to make this question even more richer
Mhm.
because I'm familiar with the region. So, you have roots, ties, and connections to the region. Can you talk about your time living and working in New York's capital region and how these experiences inform your creative process as a poet and performer?
Well, so I'm originally from Connecticut. I was born and raised in Bridgeport, and
Oh,
born and raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut. But I often say that as an artist, as a creative, I was raised in the capital region. So I went to UAlbany for grad school. And then after grad school, I just kind of stayed in the area,
mm,
all the while performing, competing in poetry slams, traveling around the country. Um, I just I didn't have to stay in the capital region, but for some reason, it felt like home, and I kept finding new creative homes. I started working with Black Theater Troupe of upstate New York, back in the day when they were still Soul Rebel performance troupe. And so that was my entry into the theater world. Um, and I was entering the theater world as a poet. They were doing like nights of monologues, and I was just showing up and just doing my own poems. And then that led into me doing something that I didn't write and having to embody a character. And then that led to being part of a cast. And so on and so forth. And eventually I wrote my own piece. And um, so all of those things kind of organically happened. I also started an open mic in the Capital Region called Poetic Vibe, and that ran for 6 years at Troy Kitchen, 5 or 6 years at Troy Kitchen, right before the pandemic hit. And then I did it virtually for like a year and a half, and then I did it in another space. And the community, the poetry community, in the Capital Region, everyone talks about Poetic Vibe, or they talk about the Poetry Slam. And then I was on the first Poetry Slam team that went to nationals from the Capital Region. So I'm really like, wherever I could start something or be a part of something new, I was I was kind of there, and that's how I've grown as an artist. Is I've allowed myself to experience things at their beginning, or to start things that I'm not seeing exist in the Capital Region. And so um that's, that my connection to it is like, I feel like, you can kind of like um go around to an open mic and hear a little remnant of Poetic Vibe, or people know my work theater wise. I have murals in Albany. I have a mural, like a huge mural in Albany. So I feel like I'm part of the fabric, if that makes sense, of the Capital Region, and what we as artists can create in that space. Yeah, there's always something. And I live in Troy too. So I feel like Troy is a growing arts, culturally artistic, creative hub in the Capital Region. There's always something happening, and lots of artists end up living in Troy and being in community with each other. So I think that answered your question. I don't know if I
Oh
like.
yeah, that's perfect. So, because I had a similar experience, but I actually moved out here after I'm overeducated. I owe like tons of student loans. I have way too many degrees.
Same.
Yeah, right. What did you get? Right. What did you get your grad degree in at U Albany?
Africana Studies. I got a master's in Africana Studies. And yep,
Nice.
got a master's in Africana Studies. I was actually going for a dual master's in Africana Studies and English with a concentration in creative writing. And I did all the coursework for the English department. And the thesis, there's a long story, but
Oh, if you're able to share,
yeah.
yeah.
So I was writing my thesis on a Haitian poet whose name is Philippe Toby Mauslin. And I wanted to kind of capture the time that that he had come up in, and that time was during the U.S. occupation of Haiti. Also during that time, so there was a movement to resist the U.S. occupation in Haiti, and it was led by artists, musicians, poets, and he was one of the leaders of this movement. And that was happening um, almost at the same time, but right before the Harlem Renaissance, and also concurrently with the movement from Martinique and Senegal called Negritude. So all these movements were happening at the same, and they were all reclaiming Blackness. And a lot of the writers were also traveling to like Langston Hughes went to Haiti, or Neil Hurston went to Haiti. Philippe Toby Mauslin ended up coming to the U.S. And so there was a lot of conversation, and I was just like, oh, we don't even know this stuff. So I wanted to focus on his work, and he has novels, he has some fiction that's all been translated into English, and he has 4 collections of poetry that haven't been translated at all. And so I wanted to kind of basically translate his work for the first time into English, and also talk about the context of his work within, the resistance of the U.S. occupation, and what that looked like, and what it sounds like to not only reclaim identity, but also to reclaim language, because in Haiti, the official language was French. And so for a writer to decide intentionally where he was going to place Creole, language of the people, in his writing was a big deal. And so that was the thesis. And so what had happened was,
Yes, I love what you said. What happened was, which I all trust me, I know because I when I was working on my doctorate I recently finished,
hmm
my dissertation changed like multiple times because lives and like when you're doing
hmm
research is like especially when you're doing research on real people because I was like doing interviews and stuff, data makes it go nope. So
hmm
so I get it. Like I'm
yeah.
wondering like what's next in your story.
Yeah, so I went on Google one day and I was just searching. I was like, let me see what Google gives me when I Google him, right? And I think I was on like page 8 or 9 or whatever, and I found this blog, and the blog was written by his great niece, and she had a blog post with a picture of him and his wife, and I was like, "What? Wait a minute." Like
Yes.
actual family. So I got in touch with her, and I got to visit the home, and they had boxes of his stuff. They just had all the, like, which is like a gold mine for anyone who's, doing any kind of research or trying to write some. It's just, so they had boxes of his stuff, and they made lots of copies for me. And then I went back to UAlbany, like telling my professors, like, guess what happened? And they were like, oh, you need another semester.
But see, that's what happens is the power of the archive. So on my
Yeah.
other series, Black Writers Read, I recently had on Victoria Christopher Murray, who wrote Harlem Rhapsody, and she
hmm
talked about um because the story so quickly, Harlem Rhapsody is about the woman who Jessie, or don't want to mess up her name, Jessie Redmond Fawcett, who was the editor of the publication with W.E.B. Du Bois. And
mm
she was the one that discovered like Countee Cullen and all of them. And when Victoria talked about, because of course this is historical fiction, when she
hmm
talked about going into the archives of the Schomburg in Harlem to learn more about the story, it it didn't necessarily shift, but it like kind of defined things a little bit more weighty. So of course,
hmm
when you like go into the archive and get information on all these things, it can be very rich, yet sometimes very daunting because you're like, wait, there's more. And and maybe
hmm
my story can change or maybe the narrative can change. So, and also too, I think it's very powerful that the archive for you in that instance was the family, which
Yeah.
in academia is extremely rare for us to
Mhm.
be able to engage with the lived experience as the
Mhm.
archive. So that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happened is I had to take another semester, and then professors change, and then you get a new thesis committee,
Yep.
and then departments close, and
God.
so it's just a long story of like things that were out of my control, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing impacts your motivation to
Yeah.
to continue. But I in the last year I've been feeling a big push to just complete it.
Mhm.
I think it's a longer project. I've been also entertaining the idea of getting a PhD, and seeing where that takes me, because maybe it's a dissertation and rather than a thesis. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, and
So yeah.
yeah, and I
Mhm.
want to follow and support you on that journey. So I have a couple more questions
Okay.
for you. Um, as a multidisciplinary artist whose work integrates poetry, visual arts, curation, education, and acting, how much has your own oh, and now we have something to add to the question. How much has your own personal journey and now having the master's in Africana studies informed your own approaches to performance?
Mm. Um, I'm always about learning, and I think I'm the poet that I am now because I'm not afraid of a workshop. I just Give me a good workshop. I wanna, I wanna see how I can elevate the work always. And I, you know, in college and in grad school, I, had formal education in the English department, and um, but I never went to school for theater, and I never went to school um, for visual art. I just been drawing my whole life and painting and creating things. And I also I had piano lessons when I was younger, so I had some kind of music training, but no formal music training. There's a lot of self-taught things. And for me, my education, particularly in Africana studies, really shapes what I write about, because I have a foundation to contextualize my lived experience, and that helps me to shine light on marginalized communities. Um, I think also that all of my work, whether I'm performing or doing workshops or uh, whatever I'm creating, I'm really interested in how people can be to move to do things differently when they leave the room. I'm really interested in how work impacts people, or inspires them, which is why my mantra is be inspired then inspired. I think that art is supposed to um, act in a way that helps us to think bigger about our world. And I love the Nina Simone quote where she says, "An artist's duty is to reflect the times." For me, as an artist, that's like it's a grounding statement for me. Um, and I think it was Amiri Baraka who said, "It's the artist's duty to raise the consciousness of a people." I think I'm combining, but raise the consciousness of a people. So for me, I feel that if I'm performing in someone else's work, pieces that I choose to perform in, or pieces that I'm creating myself, should always be in conversation with the world that I'm living in and the existence that I have, so that other people who might be going through a similar experience, or also maybe don't have an understanding about an issue or topic or place or a type of being, can leave with a different understanding or a fuller understanding of what that is.
Nice. And in just that bit, you also gave a little bit of context in terms of the experience that folks will have coming into the solo community exploration, which for folks who are joining us, I'm actually going to be facilitating the talk back after the 2 p.m. performance on Friday, June 27th, at the Lennox Town Hall. And at least for that performance, I'm a little bit aware in terms of the intimacy and the setup and things like that. I don't want to give it away to folks, but the thing that I want folks to note is that, and this is one of the, besides the brilliant writing
Mhm.
by Donnetta, Lavinia Gray, is so I'm someone, my scholarship and the work that I do, of the many hats that I wear, is I'm very interested in theater audiences and
Mm.
like understanding like how they connect to the work and why they seek out the work. I'll tell a really quick story and this will go into what people can prepare for as an audience member. So I I actually live in Windsor, Connecticut, and I work in Western Mass. And I
Okay.
recently, yeah, and I recently went to see Hartford Stage's production of Hurricane Diane. And that show, it's it's very, very queer centered. There's a lot of like movement in the VOMs and things like that. It was in the thrust. And given I want to say this respectfully, because Hartford Stage, one, I was a subscriber and I plan on subscribing next season. I highly respect their work, but they're going to the theater there is a lot different. Given that it was a thrust, the audience was in the dark, and like the usual theater spotlights and all those things were on stage, and there was the fourth wall. There was not an expectation for the audience to engage with and be expected to engage with the performer. This is going to be different because it's billed as a solo community exploration. And for folks who are going to attend the Friday performance at 2:00, be prepared, because the first set of questions I have for the talkback are actually not for our performer and our director. They're actually going to be for you, because I would love for you to really deeply think about, what does it mean to, sit in a theater space? Sit and see theater that's not in a traditional theater space, where you actually see some of your peers and some of the people that you are experiencing that moment with. That is huge for me, because a lot of times we don't see the people that we're attending theater with, and that changes things drastically. So folks, like I said at the very beginning, come with a very open heart, and I'm going to call y'all out, because I'm a local activist. Western Massachusetts audiences, Berkshires is a different thing. To the east of the Connecticut River Valley, that's where I work, Franklin, Hampshire, and Hamden County, y'all know y'all got some issues, like the tofu curtain and the whole I pay to be let me entertain you. I am paying to be entertained. This is not it. But academic, I'm gonna go both, and I want you to come. I am inviting you to join us, because this is especially, and then I want to wrap up, but especially given the times that we are existing in, literally stuff changed since y'all even went into the rehearsal room. Hell, stuff changed since this fucking morning. So it's
and it's been a very interesting experience to slow down with the lines while things are happening in our country, in the world, and thinking about what's being said, and there's so much texture, but it feels so it does reflect the times.
It definitely
That's for
reflects the
sure. It
time.
has that. It is reflecting the times.
Yeah, and that's literally one of the reasons. I have so many reasons, but the biggest reason that I got involved with WAM Theater, and I have a beautiful WAM Theater, I've been involved with WAM Theater since 2019, is we do theater differently. I will never forget, because I got sent to things on behalf of WAM Theater, to theater communication group, which is the national advocacy group for theater, and hearing from other theater companies, and then comparing our work, with the whole, for example, the We See You White American Theater movement, which I will share for folks to go to the replay on YouTube. I'll share links to some of these things. This is Dr. Young Martin, professor, coming in. And we're at the 5-year anniversary of all of, because all of that came around the time of George Floyd's assassination. WAM Theater was doing a lot of that work in terms of inclusivity and making sure the work that we do represents that we want to serve, and making sure we had marginalized folk at the table making decisions. And so that's why I got involved with WAM Theater, and that really, really helped to shape our current season. So, yeah. So I want to wrap up tonight with one more question for you, and I'm really excited to meet you, and I'm so excited to meet you in person. And you have no idea how excited I am to see the show. I love I love live theater so much, and I recently just started going back because I'm just going to be transparent with folks. This is the first time I'm announcing it on air. I was really impacted by COVID, and I didn't realize it until my husband and my therapist called me out. I became agoraphobic, major anxiety, and I'm somebody who's extremely outgoing and all these things. And I haven't been to theater before Hurricane Diane and some WAM theater shows. I haven't been to theater since pre-pandemic, and I used to like throw full paychecks to go see theater. So I'm very excited to see this in person, living and breathing. So besides the
Mhm.
very intense rehearsal and tech schedule you have coming up for Where We Stand in the performances,
Mhm.
which by the way, I would love to have you on Black Writers Read because I saw that you have your own play and your own
Mhm.
work. What is
Mhm.
next for you in terms of your own work, and how can the creating and community, I'm sorry, because this is a new series for us, creating and color community support you on this journey?
So the play that you're referencing, it's called Simone,
Mhm.
and I wrote it in 2018. And it tells the story of a Haitian woman, earthquake survivor, who comes to the U.S. on temporary protected status, but is threatened with deportation because the administration is trying to get rid of temporary protected status. I wrote it at the time because of what was happening at the time. Um, and I performed it one night only on
Mhm.
January 12th, which is the day of the earthquake. So January 12th, 2019 is when I performed it, 9 years after the earthquake. And then I had everyone call their rep.
Nice.
So that's what it was, a play rooted in some action that could happen, that could follow the play.
Mhm.
And I wasn't thinking about publishing it, but then it's so hyper relevant again, and so I decided to put it out in the world, and so I don't know when I'd be performing it again. Last fall, I performed my second play, Psalm 91. That was my first time doing that. Did a 8 show run of that, um,
Oh.
and it was mostly a one-person show, but with a cast. So I was in every scene, and I had lines in every scene except for one.
Mhm.
And so that would be the next thing that would be coming out, because I've had people ask me if I could travel with that, and
Nice.
if I could do it in Connecticut. I had people who came from Connecticut to New York to see the show and want me to bring it there, and so I'm just kind of feeling my way through that. But right now, my goal is to do Where We Stand,
Yes.
and then what comes after that, I'm excited for. As a full time artist, like, this is all I do is the art.
Oh, hold up. That's my dream girl, which is why I said dream girl, not dream girl. Um, because I'm hustling hard. I teach at 3 to 4 different colleges. So
Mm. Yeah, I used to teach middle school, I taught high school, I taught college for a little bit, and I took the leap in 2017, and then I worked some part-time jobs, and now
Mhm.
I'm fully I am my boss fully. So
Yes.
I'm not working for anyone else right now.
Mhm.
I'm working for myself. So a lot of contract work, and I also, I go out and teach workshops in schools and organizations and things like that, but I
Nice.
also work with clients. So I have my own, business, working with clients one on one and doing my
Mhm.
own virtual classes and workshops. And I also sell things because I paint,
Yes.
so yeah, I have found a way to diversify my income as a creative and make it a full time gig. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love it. And when one of us is free, all of
Mm.
us is free. So Harriet Tubman, girl, where you at? Where you at? I'm ready. I've been, girl, I'm ready. Where you at? Where you at? Boo boo. Where you at? So D Colin, which I hope it's okay that I say this on air because I loved it
Mhm.
when we met pre. I was like, "Is it D Colin or D?" And you were like, "Is D Colin like a Tribe Called Quest?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah,
Yep.
yes,
Decalling like a Tribe Called
Tribe Called
Quest.
Quest, yes." So D Colin, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I look forward to meeting you in the next few days. I don't say break a leg because I actually, when I was acting back in undergrad, I literally busted my right ankle on stage. So I
Oh.
say steal some hearts.
Ooh, I like that. Steal some hearts.
Please feel
Okay,
free.
I'm gonna tell people they should say because I also tell people don't say break a leg to me because I'm very clumsy and
Yes.
I have recovered from a few injuries and so break a leg is not the best. Gotta be something else. But I love steal some hearts.
Yeah, so please definitely use that. So D Colin, thank you so much for being on. And I will see you on Friday.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking
Thank,
forward.
yeah, thank you. So thank you everyone for joining me today for Creating in Color. I'll be back in a few weeks. So be sure to follow me on Instagram at Coco underscore pen explore or find me online at Black Writers Read. That's my other platform to learn more about when I'm going to be back here doing this. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, which many of you are joining me today from, to receive updates on the guests that will be joining us this season. Also, I want to give, of course, a special shout out because we have people joining us from WAM Theater's Facebook page. Thank you all for joining us for the special collaboration. Support independently produced media. Creating in Color and Black Writers Read are all self-funded and self-produced endeavors. If you are so moved, please feel free. Monetary gifts are extremely appreciated. Trust me, your money will be stewarded very well, including helping me to produce the series, which paying for the platform, paying to get things distributed, helping me do research, keeping my equipment up to date, and things like that. And then also, I do have staff that work with me as well. So paying people a nominal wage to do this work. So, thank you for joining me for this episode of Creating in Color. Be here, be aware, be someone, and be loved.